So a lot of people write blog posts that look amazing on the surface with great design, catchy headlines, perfect grammar, but they still don't rank in Google. And it can be really, really frustrating, especially when you feel like you've done everything right. But the thing is, Google isn't looking at how nice your blog looks or how well it reads. It's checking a few different things in the back end that most people either overlook or they don't even know about. So in this episode, I want to go through the 5 things that Google wants to see from your content if you actually want to land on page 1 and actually stay there. If you're new here, my name is Josiah Roche, and my team and I have published over 4,000 blog articles and helped some of our clients triple their organic traffic in under 32 weeks. So I've seen what works and, more importantly, what doesn't. So let's dive straight into it. Number 1 is Google wants to see who's behind your content. So if you're publishing blog posts without an author or bio, those little sections on the side of a blog post that you see sometimes, it might not seem like a big deal, but to Google, it's a big red flag because it makes the content feel anonymous, right? Like no one's actually taking responsibility for it. It could be totally made up, right? And this matters even more in sensitive niches like health, finance, legal, all that kind of stuff, where bad information or misleading information can actually hurt people, okay? So Google wants to make sure real humans with actual experience or credentials are behind the words on the actual page. So what do? Well, you can start with adding a clear author bio to all of your blogs, and it doesn't have to be long. You can just be enough to explain who you are, why you're qualified to speak on the topic. Add a little social proof in there, and even better, if you can link your name to a verified LinkedIn profile or a personal website with your portfolio and stuff like that, that adds another layer of trust. And this taps into what we call the authority bias. And basically, we're more likely to trust information when we know it's coming from someone who knows what they're talking about, right? So Google's algorithm is trained to think the exact same way. So if you've been hiding behind, generic bylines saying team or your business name as the author, then now's a good time to change that. So make sure that you give your content a face and a name because it helps both readers and search engines rank your content because it's more trustworthy. Next up is updating blog posts. This is number 2, especially old blog posts. So a lot of people think just hitting the update button and changing the date will be all they need to do, and they call it a day. But Google's a lot smarter than that, because if something meaningful hasn't changed in the blog post, Google knows. And you'll see this if you've got hrefs. Hrefs can actually show you whether or not the search engines can see if you've done a meaningful update or not. So what does a meaningful update look like, a real update? So it could mean adding fresh statistics, replacing outdated references that you used to have that no longer apply, improving the formatting so it's a little bit easier to read, the reading level while we speak about that, and rewriting sections entirely, right? Even updating internal links to point to newer resources that you've created recently makes a big difference. Another quick win is to rework your introduction of that blog post so it feels new, right? So if your opening paragraph doesn't hook people right away, or you feel like it could be improved, and you want to avoid them bouncing straight away, which actually sends a negative signal to Google, you might want to change that so you reel them in faster and you keep them reading and give them a reason to keep scrolling. And if you're not already using Google Search Console, it's worth checking out because you can see pages that you have that have dipped in rankings recently, or have been getting fewer clicks over time. And those are usually the best candidates for a website refresh or a blog post refresh because they've already proven that they can rank before. They just need a little bit extra love right now so that they can start to rank again. Number 3 is using simple language. So simple writing almost always beats fancy writing, right? You don't have to dumb down everything you're doing. I'm not saying that. There's a big difference between that and writing simply, but you do want to make your content really easy to understand and comprehend. Because when your message is really, really clear, then people stick around for a lot longer, which improves your engagement time or time on page. And that tells Google that your content is actually helpful to the search query. And the problem is complex writing, like writing super formally, writing at a high reading level, all that kind of stuff, it creates what's called a cognitive overload. And that's basically when your brain gets tired from processing too much information at once. So long sentences, technical jargon, and really dense and big paragraphs all contribute to that feeling. And even if readers don't consciously know about it, it still happens to like CEOs and scientists who are used to reading at a post-grad reading level. Still, at the end of the day, while they've just had their brain is baked after a long day at work, and they come home and they read your blog post, they don't want to have effort there, and you're subconsciously trying to, well, what your brain is doing is subconsciously trying to protect itself from burning calories, right? You can look this up, but most people give up and bounce because the content's too hard to read. So that's why you've got to read simply. It's not dumbing content down, it's just making it easier for people. All of this hurts your results with SEO. If you have people bounce really quickly, then it becomes a huge problem for your ranking. So try to aim for short sentences, use everyday words, break your content into smaller chunks with subheadings and different sections. And you can actually use tools like Hemingway Editor or Grammarly, and these can actually help you find the areas in your content that are too hard to read, and you can just rewrite them, right? Number 4 is internal linking. So linking to other pages on your site really helps Google understand how your content fits all together, but only if it feels natural. And what I mean by that, if you're stuffing a link into every sentence or forcing keywords that don't belong in the sentence itself, then it starts to look super spammy, and Google can see that. You know, they're smart enough to know that. So instead, you need to think about your internal links as a part of the natural reader's journey, right? As they're going through the content, see where you can naturally fit in links where it makes sense to, and tweak a word here and there without affecting the sentence structure too much. So ask yourself, what would someone want to read next on a certain sentence when you're linking to another article that's relevant? Maybe it's a related blog post or a case study or a product page that expands upon what you're talking about right now. And that is a perfect candidate for an internal link. Don't just link back to your homepage or your main service page and sell people stuff, because a lot of people do that, and it's terrible SEO because you're not doing what's natural in the user journey. A lot of people just link back to their money pages or the pages they sell things on, and it's terrible because they're not adding variety to their blog posts, right? And Google sees that. They're smart enough for that. They've got like hundreds of engineers just working on this all day long, and they're there to outsmart you, you know? And so you've just got to play by the rules, and then, you know, then everything's dandy. So you need to have deep links to specific articles on your website. Maybe it's FAQs or tools or calculators or videos, YouTube videos. Be very generous with your links so that you can spread authority across your entire website, so that people find it useful, but also search engines, so they can see the relationship between pages. And as a rule of thumb, try to use internal links when they're generally adding context and value, right? So 1 or 2 links per section, like main section, is usually plenty. Sometimes 1 is even plenty, but try to aim for quality over quantity in this case. Now, number 5, the 5th one, is external links. So a lot of people trip up over this one because a lot of people worry about like giving away too much of their link juice, right? Their SEO link juice. So basically, since they're worried about it, every single link they point to another website, they'll mark it as a no follow, so it doesn't pass any SEO value, but it actually makes your website look way less trustworthy when you do this, because you're trying to like be greedy with all your links. And if you look at all the reputable websites out there, all the news outlets, all the big brands and stuff, most of them add do follows. They have do follows to most of their links, and they're not protecting it like a fortress. Okay, and Google looks out for that in your posts to see whether or not you look legit, like a normal publication that's reputable, or you're just being greedy with your links, right? So try to make sure that you're sending enough links to reputable outbound resources. And a good way to do that is to link to like government websites. Like if you're a law firm in Sydney, then you might link in your FAQ section to, this applies to commercial pages, but you can do this for blog posts, link this to local council laws or the state government's websites and regulations on certain things. There are clever ways to link to government websites. You could link it to statistics. You could link it to peer-reviewed studies and journal studies and all that kind of stuff. Because it's kind of like social proof, right? When you back up your claims with third-party validation like that, people are more likely to believe you, trust you, stick around, and also spend their money with you. There are times to mark your links as no follow where it makes sense to. For example, if you've got affiliate links or sponsored content in your blog posts, make sure you mark them as no follow or sponsored. But for normal citations, keep them as do follow, right? don't be greedy with your link juice because it's more natural and it gives Google one more reason to trust your website. Those are the 5 things that Google is looking for when it evaluates your content on your website's blog. They're not flashy, they're not over the top secrets, but they won't show up on most SEO checklists because not a lot of people focus on them. But they do tip the scales in your favor. So to recap, number 1 was show who's behind the content with author bios. Number 2 is actually update your old posts. Don't just change the date. Number 3 is to write simply and clearly so you're keeping the engagement rate high. Number 4 is use internal links and make sure you're using variety in your internal links. Number 5 is don't be afraid to link to trusted sources and be very clever with your outbound links, okay? So keep this in mind next time you hit publish, and over time you'll start to see much stronger engagement across your entire website. You'll start to see more variety and better rankings across the board and more consistent traffic. Okay, so at the end of the day, Google's not out to get you. It just wants people to show content that's actually real, useful, and trustworthy. And most of what we talked about today flies under the radar with most SEOs out there. And these are just basics, what I'm telling you about. But most websites don't do these basic things. And it's exactly the same stuff that moves the needle to actually get you rankings, especially with EEAT and all the updates coming out with the core updates. So that's all we've got time for today. If you found this episode helpful, hit like, subscribe, and drop a comment below. I'm more than happy to check that out and get back to you on that. Until next time, cheers.